But we will not do that if we take the Jeremy Corbyn line of thinking it is so much easier to blame ourselves. It's always the easiest thing in this country now. It's not to do with us. You know, Britishness is about more than just some of the things that are coming up. It is about a history. It is about how we got here. It is about the fact that this is unique and or at least very rare in human history to have this kind of tolerance and diversity and to make it work.
Welcome to the channel. Today we delve into Douglas Murray's brutally honest perspective on extremism and the UK's response to global threats.
Douglas Murray, is it realistic to think the UK can protect its citizens abroad?
No, but we can't protect British citizens. The British government and security services can't protect British citizens all the time. They can do as much as they can at home and abroad, and I think they've got the capabilities they need to do that. But, you know, the nature of terrorism is that it chooses targets in such a way that it tends to choose weak targets. It's the nature of terrorism. It goes for people precisely in things like this, on a beach, enjoying a holiday. It's one of the wicked things about terrorism, but it's one of the things that makes it effective as well. And I think we have to be very careful in our response not to play into the terrorists' hands. You know, the terrorists want to ruin Tunisia on this occasion in particular, ruin the tourist economy of Tunisia, which is so important to that country, a country which is perhaps the only success story of the events called the Arab Spring. But one thing I would say, though, is that there's something which happened this week which I do think needs to be flagged up. On Monday, the Prime Minister got into a hermeneutic battle with the BBC about what we call these terrorists. He said they shouldn't be called ISIS, they shouldn't be called Islamic State. This is a big mistake, I would suggest. All of the linguistic wordplay aside, first of all, it doesn't help. We never called the IRA the so-called IRA, and the Islamic State is the Islamic State. It is what it says it is. It's what it claims to be. It's very Islamic, and it claims to be a state. Calling it ISIL, which was one of the other suggestions of the Prime Minister, is ludicrous, because ISIL simply means the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. So another suggestion was Daesh. Well, Daesh is just the Arabic for the same thing, for Islamic State. And
they're not going to get rid of it, whatever by changing its name, are you?
Exactly.
So why bother?
Exactly. So this is why I wanted to raise it, was because when the Prime Minister said this, it seemed to me to be a demonstration of weakness. It is not the role of the Prime Minister of this country to tell the BBC what the Islamic State should be called, and nor is it the role of the Prime Minister to get into that kind of wordplay. It should be the role of the Prime Minister, I think, to say 30 British citizens were killed in cold blood. Now, Britain, as a state, should respond to that very forcefully.
They are a state. I think they're very well funded, I think they're very well armed, and I think we do need to bomb them. We cause some of the problems, I agree, but we still need to bomb them. We need to fight back, and we need to do something.
Come from?
It doesn't matter where it came from. It comes from. It's there. It's there. And given the chance, they would happily walk across and do it here, happily. And they will sacrifice themselves. As far as the guy in Tunisia thought, he's now in paradise. He would have completely, 100% believed that he would die a martyr and is off to paradise. That's ridiculous to me. It's ridiculous to the audience. But that guy would be happy in the knowledge that he's going to be shot. He wasn't hiding. He didn't run in, try and shoot someone and run away. He went in, happily strolled about shooting people. It's a disgrace that we're not doing more. We should be fighting them on the ground. We should do all we can to eradicate this group. It's crazy.
A couple of quick points. First of all, this kind of action predates our recent interventions in the region. In 1996, something very similar to what happened the other day happened at Luxor in Egypt, where a group of Swiss tourists were massacred and beheaded at the sites there. That was before 9/11, before Afghanistan and Iraq, that needs to be said. Secondly, we did not intervene in Syria. We cannot blame ourselves every time we do intervene and every time we don't. We did not intervene in Syria. This country, the Labour Party decided not to enforce the red lines when Assad used chemical weapons. We did not intervene there, and ISIS, as a result, among other things, of the fact that Syria has broken apart and neither we nor any other country knows what to do about it. It is a huge problem. It is not a simple one.
But very quickly, when we intervened in Syria,
very quickly. Look, there was no decent plan in Syria at that point. This is why it was not an appropriate thing to do. But look, let's just get back to the point on this. The fact is that there is no border now between Syria and Iraq. There is something ludicrous about forces from the region and outside the region bombing an ISIS camp when it is on the Iraqi side of the border, but not when it's on the Syrian side of the border.
That point.
To be able to properly combat Daesh, should we really be considering putting boots on the ground and working in an international coalition with people like Saudis, the Turkish, to properly get them, and probably even working with Bashar al-Assad to try and get rid of these people who...
Would you like to answer that? Would you like to see that?
Very quickly. What we would have to do before that is to decide what as a nation we wished to achieve in the region. There are a whole set of things. It may be the case, for instance, I mean, this is the complexity of the situation. If you do anything that ends up overthrowing Assad, you've got a completely lawless country there. On the other hand, we don't want to be Assad's friend, but we can't topple him. It's the same across the region. If you defeat ISIS too much, then the Iranian forces that are going throughout the region benefit as well. And there's a whole set of knock-on consequences. So all I would say is, what we have to do first is decide what is the strategic objective. I think a legitimate strategic objective is to punish ISIS, but we will not do that if we take the Jeremy Corbyn line of thinking it is so much easier to blame ourselves. It's always the easiest thing in this country now. It's not to do with us. ISIS has its own centrifugal force, and it has its own ownership of its own crimes.
Okay.
I am a teacher in a school. I teach French in a school in Newham to a predominantly Islamic population there, and it's an all-girls school. And the students in the school are very anti the Islamic State and think it's ridiculous, and think what happened to the girls in Bethnal Green is absolutely ridiculous. They'd never do something like that. I teach French there. I don't know how someone like me would be able to pick up on those signs. I'd certainly be looking for them. I do think it's my responsibility, if I find them, to report them. But I do agree with what the gentleman said earlier, that it is not necessarily the teachers that we should be looking to pick up these signs. It's the parents, it's the communities, it's the students and the friends who should be picking up on these things, more so than teachers.
Okay. Douglas Murray.
I mean, just quickly, to say a word of praise, as it were, for the government. What they're trying to do at the moment is to find a comprehensive strategy that goes across all government departments. This hasn't existed in recent years. It didn't exist under the last government or the one before that. And what they're trying to do is to plug those loopholes, as it were, where there are areas of the state that have been totally given up their responsibility in this regard. You know, they've got a criteria in relation to Ofcom and foreign language stations that broadcast into the UK with extremist material. They've got tightening up of the Charity Commission to make sure that extremists don't use British charities and so on. So this is part of a comprehensive strategy, which the teaching element is just one bit of. And really it is to say, just like everybody else in society, as Jeremy Hunt says, to take responsibility where you see it. Now, the Bethnal Green schoolgirls case, among others, shows it is a real concern. I agree with the gentleman here. I mean, there is something... We are demanding everything and nothing to an extent. People expect, for instance, the police to know if a girl is likely to go to Syria, whereas they don't expect the man who, you know, the father who sleeps in the next door bedroom necessarily to know. So it is an extremely complex situation, but I think there is a minimum that teachers could do, and I think in many cases will. But just very quickly on this issue of what Nicky Morgan raised, I find this very problematic, I have to say. Saying, you know, what we have to do here is to talk about what British values are. And we have to be very clear about what they are. And I think that saying, for instance, that homosexuality... I mean, Nicky Morgan, I remember a few years ago when I was writing pieces in support of gay marriage, Nicky Morgan didn't support gay marriage at the time. But, you know, these things have moved very fast. And I worry that what is happening at the moment is that in an attempt to pin down what Britishness is, we're putting it on very wide but very shallow ground. You know, Britishness is about more than just some of the things that are coming up. It is about a history. It is about how we got here. It is about the fact that this is unique and or at least very rare in human history to have this kind of tolerance and diversity and to make it work.
In this insightful discussion, Murray highlights the necessity of clear strategic objectives in military interventions, particularly in volatile regions like Syria and Iraq. He stresses the importance of international cooperation and understanding the long-term impacts of such actions. Additionally, Murray underscores how terrorist groups often target ordinary individuals to spread fear and destabilize economies. Historically, such groups have sought to exploit these vulnerabilities to gain maximum impact. His take exposes the weakness at the highest levels of leadership, which often distracts from the problem at hand. He emphasizes the crucial role of parents, communities, and peers in identifying and preventing radicalization, praising comprehensive government strategies that involve multiple sectors. Ultimately, Murray calls for a collective effort to address extremism, moving beyond futile debates to take decisive, effective action. His blunt honesty challenges us to consider the broader implications of our responses to these global threats. Thank you for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us again for more discussions.